Elizabeth Montgomery in Bewitched.
In the last video, we showed that the prophecy in Revelation chapter 18 matches up with 9 pieces of data from 9/11. We also identified Babylon the Great as New York City and saw how John metaphorically described New York as a woman dressed in purple and scarlet and glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. In this video, we will unpack Revelation chapter 17. This chapter builds into the 9/11 attack and is really a prelude into Revelation chapter 18. I expect to find another 1 or 2 pieces of data that match up the 9/11 attack with this chapter. Revelation chapter 17 reads, and I'm paraphrasing, "One of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls of God's wrath came and said to me, 'Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute who sits on many waters. With her the kings of the earth committed adultery, and the inhabitants of the earth were intoxicated with the wine of her adulteries. Then the angel carried me away in the spirit into a desert. There I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast that was covered with blasphemous names, and had 7 heads and 10 horns. The woman was dressed in purple and scarlet, and was glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. She held a golden cup in her hand, filled with abominable things and the filth of her adulteries. This title was written on her forehead, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of prostitutes and of the abominations of the earth. I saw that the woman was drunk with the blood of the saints, the blood of those who bore testimony to Jesus. When I saw her, I was greatly astonished. Then the angel said to me, 'Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and will come up out of the abyss and go to his destruction. The inhabitants of the earth whose names have not been written into the book of life from the creation of the world will be astonished when they see the beast, because he once was, now is not, and yet will come.' This calls for a mind with wisdom. The 7 heads are 7 hills on which the woman sits. They are also 7 kings. 5 have fallen, 1 is, the other is not yet come. But when he does come, he must remain for a little while. The beast who once was and now is not is an 8th king. He belongs to the 7 and is going to his destruction. The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They will make war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will overcome them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers. Then the angel said to me, 'The waters you saw, where the prostitute sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. The beast and the 10 horns you saw will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to give the beast their power to rule until God's words are fulfilled. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth.'" So, chapter 17 is about the woman we saw in chapter 18. We know it's the same woman because she has Babylon the Great written across her forehead, and she is dressed the same way, in purple and scarlet, and glittering with gold, precious stones, and pearls. I just realized that chapter 18 was very specific about how the great city was known for trading commodities. It specifically mentions merchants trading cargoes of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine linen, purple, silk, and scarlet cloth. I mean, this is seriously spooky because the prostitute is dressed in all of these commodities, so she is reflecting the commodity trading that went on in the city. And of course, the World Trade Center was the heart of global financial markets and commodity trading. I mean, it's Wall Street. However, in chapter 17, not only does the Apostle John describe her as a prostitute, he calls her the mother of harlots. With her, the kings of the earth committed adultery. And so the angel says to John, "Come, I will show you the punishment of the great prostitute, the punishment being for the practice of idolatry and sin. But here's the thing. We identified the prostitute in chapter 18 as being New York City. It makes sense because God redefined Israel to being those people who belong to Christ, whose sin has been forgiven. And so the United States, being the country with the largest Christian population, has become the mountains of Israel. And New York City, metaphorically, is the New Jerusalem, with the Twin Towers being the temple. And so 9/11 was the destruction of the temple. Now, this makes a lot of sense to me, because way back in 563 BC, the first temple was destroyed by King Nebuchadnezzar in Babylon. The second temple was destroyed by the Romans, and now the third temple destroyed by Al-Qaeda, led by Osama bin Laden. So the destruction of the World Trade Center was, according to Revelation chapter 17, a punishment on God's people for the practice of idolatry and sin. Now in verse 6, we see John greatly astonished. Then in verse 7, the angel says, "Why are you astonished? I will explain to you the mystery of the woman and of the beast she rides, which has the 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast which you saw once was, now is not, and will come up out of the abyss and go to his destruction. The inhabitants of the earth whose names have not been written into the book of life from the creation of the world will be astonished when they see the beast, because he once was, now is not, and yet will come." This calls for a mind with wisdom. Now, when John says, "This calls for a mind with wisdom," what he's really doing is reaching back to the prophet Daniel, because Daniel had a reputation for having insight and wisdom like that of the gods. We know this from Daniel chapter 5. And Daniel educated us about the beast with 7 heads and 10 horns. I made several videos on Revelations chapter 13 that explains all about this beast, and I recommend you watch those if you want the full story. But here's the recap. The 7 heads were 7 empires that ruled over Jerusalem, beginning with Babylon in 575 BC and ending with Nazi Germany in 1945. The 7th empire began with the Holy Roman Empire, which lasted from 800 to 1800 AD. Now, during that period, Satan was thrown into the abyss and locked up just long enough for the Holy Roman Empire to be defeated by Napoleon in 1806. Then Satan got released from the abyss, and discovering that his beast was dead, declares war and starts gathering the nations for a worldwide battle. He wastes no time, and in 1871, the German Empire was unified. Then fast forward to 1914, Germany leads the Axis powers into World War I, and this then leads into World War II, Nazi Germany, and the Holocaust. And in May 1945, Nazi Germany surrendered, and that was the 7th head. And in the Revelations chapter 13 videos, we explain the mouthpiece of the Holy Roman Empire was the papacy, and the mouthpiece of Nazi Germany was Hitler. However, the empires and mouthpieces, while constituting the heads of the beast, was not the source of power. All power and authority of their throne was given to them by a much darker, sinister force, not of this earth. The real power underpinning the heads was satanic. This was made clear in Revelations chapter 13. So after 1945, the beast is left with the 10 horns. And these 10 horns are 10 Islamic dynasties, which I explained in the Revelations 13 video series. If you want me to make a video to give you more color about these dynasties, please let me know in the comments, and I'll make it. All right, so this brings us to verse 12 and leads us into the 9/11 prophecy. So verse 12 says, "The 10 horns you saw are 10 kings who have not yet received a kingdom, but who for 1 hour will receive authority as kings along with the beast. They will make war against the Lamb, but the Lamb will overcome them, because he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and with him will be his called, chosen, and faithful followers." So from here, this prophecy explains itself. The waters you saw, where the prostitute sits, are peoples, multitudes, nations, and languages. New York is an international city. It's also the headquarters of the United Nations. The beast and the 10 horns, which, as we know, Al-Qaeda are Islamic extremists, will hate the prostitute. They will bring her to ruin and leave her naked. They will eat her flesh and burn her with fire. For God has put it into their hearts to accomplish his purpose by agreeing to give the beast their power to rule until God's words are fulfilled, or until God's prophecy becomes an historical event. The woman you saw is the great city that rules over the kings of the earth. And now we're into chapter 18. So chapter 17 has given more color on the 9/11 attack. The 10 horns, being Islamic, match up with Al-Qaeda. Once again, they gave their power to the beast for 1 hour. As we saw in the 9/11 video clip, the first tower collapsed 56 minutes after being struck. But also, the hijacked planes struck the World Trade Center and the Pentagon between 8:46 a.m. and 9:37 a.m., which is 51 minutes. So broadly speaking, the 9/11 attack was over in an hour. The United Nations being headquartered in New York highlights the kings of the earth. But more than that, New York is the financial capital of the world. They brought her to ruin, left her naked, ate her flesh, burned her with fire. It's vivid, it's violent. But there's another color here, another perspective, the destruction of the temple, the punishment of God's people, punishment for their adultery, the practice of idolatry, disaster for their rebellion. This is the color I'm getting from chapter 17. That's a lot to think about. All right, so I found at least 10 pieces of data that match up 9/11 with the prophecies in chapters 17 and 18. But there is one piece of data from 9/11 that has not been matched up with a prophecy, and it's a big piece. The number of deaths. Almost 3,000 people were killed in the attack. I'm thinking we've now found 27 pieces of evidence. So surely the number of deaths has been prophesied, and I just haven't found it yet, right? 27 data points is telling me that 9/11 is the climax of the Bible, the end game of the Masterplan. It doesn't get any bigger as far as the Bible is concerned. So if the number of deaths is in the Bible, then I will find it. I will look for it and I will find it, and I will know by the end of the next video. So let's go.